All right. What do we want to go to next, Carlene? We got a couple of things we can go to. Okay, let's go to this. I see what you're clicking on.
Sure.
This came in just sort of like this McDonald's story before our stream. We were able to get this, and we want to bring it to you. A press conference regarding a former CMS educator charged with child sex crimes in Missouri. So Cedric Gerald, Missouri Middle School principal, is accused of child sex crimes. He was a teacher with CMS. That's according to, we did some digging, that's according to CMS records. Police in Missouri are asking for more victims to come forward. Some victims have come forward. And today we actually got a chance to hear from the lawyers that are representing 6 victims from multiple school districts who were sexually, let me make sure I get this information right, sexually abused by former middle school principal Cedric Gerald. Again, he was a former teacher within Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. Again, those attorneys for the victims spoke today. 6 of those victims spoke today. They're in the St. Louis, Missouri area. Let's take a listen into that press conference.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Do we want to do some audio testing?
Yeah, just keep talking for us.
Okay. Hi, good morning. How's everyone doing? Happy that you're here.
Maybe you could give us your names and spelling.
Yeah, that would.
My name's Mary Simon. I'm an attorney at the Simon Law Firm. It's Mary, Mary, and Simon is Simon.
My name's Grant Boyd. I'm with the O'Brien Law Firm, Grantboyd.
And whoever speaks can just stand right in the middle of the podium if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, just so we all microphones. Yeah.
Does it help if I talk a little bit louder?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that more? Should I say my name again, or is that
No,
good
that's
enough? Well, thank you all so much for being here. Today we just wanted to touch base on a set of cases that Grant and I are working on. You know, this includes a really sensitive topic. We're very proud to be able to represent so far 6 victims in a set of cases that we're currently looking into claims against, Riverview School District and cases involving some pretty serious allegations against the principal. And at this point, we're really just gathering documents, talking to witnesses, and getting as much information as we can to evaluate what claims we can bring.
Yeah, so far, like Mary said, we represent 6 victims of this gentleman, Mr. Gerald, that span over multiple districts, not just Riverview Gardens, but also Ferguson Florissant, and we are also working on uncovering information that suggests that this spans all the way back to his employment in North Carolina as well, where he worked for at least 2 school districts in North Carolina. We encourage anyone and everyone who has information about this person that's reported a concern, that's seen something concerning, or that may have been victimized themselves to come forward. We are able to protect their identities as much as possible and talk to them on a confidential basis to where that they don't have to worry about all of their personal details being sent around, that they can talk to us in a private setting and get that information to us so we can do our best to not only help our clients, but potentially also help them. And that when we see such a broad sweeping system of abuse by one person that spans over such a long period of time, typically we see that we are not yet in contact with everybody, but that we want to make sure that as many people as possible can be helped because they deserve that help. And this person deserves to be held accountable. In situations like this, there is so much power in numbers and helping hold an abuser accountable, but also helping hold districts accountable for allowing something like this to happen and not being more proactive, failing to take the proper reactive steps when concerns are brought to them. In cases like this, it's very frustrating because you feel like some of these districts are doing just the bare minimum in our eyes to vet employees as well as look into certain situations, or in their hiring process they're just doing the bare minimum and not looking into somebody's background. And the information we have suggests that in this case, had districts looked into this person's background, that this person should not have been hired. So as Mr. Gerald phrased it at his bond hearing, he has a sickness, and our information is that had been going on for a long period of time. And so we're frustrated that more is not being done by these districts to identify these perpetrators ahead of time before children are abused, or importantly, before more children are abused after one already is. No children should be abused, but we need to do more to stop it from happening over and over and over again. And the question is just going to be, when are we going to do more? When are we going to want to be better? And when are we going to do better by the children of our community? So, any questions? I'm happy to take them.
Do we have a time frame of, when we believe some of these abuses, your cases of abuse may have happened?
Yeah, so far, 5 of the incidents are from Riverview Gardens when he was employed there. We have one client at Ferguson Florissant School District that was a student there. Like I said, we're looking into allegations in North Carolina as well, which spans back quite a considerable period of time. I believe the early 2000s was when he was in North Carolina.
And are the victims that you're representing, are they included in the charges from May, or are these new victims?
So some are not included. I believe we represent the majority of what we call the charged victims. So
Okay. Do you know how many?
we have 3 of the 4.
Okay.
Age range?
Essentially school age. I mean, like I said, the abuse spans multiple decades, or the allegations of what we're looking into spans multiple decades. But right now we're looking at, without getting into too many details about a specific client that could potentially lead to their public identification, we know when he was employed with Riverview, we know when he was employed at Ferguson Florissant, and in what capacities, at what schools, if that helps reverse engineer it for you.
Since he was with Charlotte-Mecklenburg the longest, have you guys been able to find any victims there?
We are looking into allegations that have come out of North Carolina. At this time, we need to vet them before we say anything publicly about them, but we are actively looking into that. We are working and getting in contact with those school districts. Communication should be going out today, if not yesterday, notifying those districts that we are looking into them.
Do you know whether or not law enforcement in North Carolina is investigating him in either one of those 2 school districts?
At that time, we wouldn't want to comment on any investigations for potential jeopardizing them, but that would probably be a question for either local law enforcement or the North Carolina law enforcement. I believe he was employed with Washington County as well as Charlotte-Mecklenburg when it comes to North Carolina.
Another question for you. Could you speak to, you talked about victimizing these children and how heinous that is, the impact that it has on them in your discussions. How awful is this, and what kind of impact does it have on these children to be victimized by an adult in this position?
I could probably talk for hours about that. It's the impact that child sexual abuse has on children survivors isn't just a momentary thing like this, similar to cutting your arm where it heals and over a small period of time. It is typically a lifelong wound that will rear its head over the course of your life multiple times. Unfortunately, it can have tragic consequences beyond just what we think of, can lead to very serious mental health concerns, as well as, unfortunately, at times, suicide. But it's when you have a person like this in a position of power, where you can access children so easily, where the children want to trust them. Everyone wants to feel endeared to their educators, that they have a personal relationship with them, that it's not just this sterile professional environment. But so to have that person then violate that trust, it can influence that child's life for the rest of their life when they come across other situations where there's a person in a position of authority, a person in a position of trust, where all of a sudden now the default setting is distrust. Is this person going to be like the last one? Is this person going to be like the perpetrator? Who else is going to hurt me? And so it is a lifelong thing to deal with. And that's why this is so, we need to be more vigilant, because once this wound is inflicted, it's not as simple as stitching it up. It's going to take a lot more work and a lot more time to heal, and usually decades, if you're ever able to fully heal. And that's why we need to be doing more.
What's the most egregious part of this case as you guys continue building your cases?
The most egregious part, obviously the abuse, right? What this guy did to these children. That's always going to be the most horrific thing. It's childhood sexual abuse is so abstract to all of us. We think it's only something we hear about every now and then on the news, but surely that's not happening around us, right? Like, no, that wouldn't happen in our community. But unfortunately, it does. It's way too pervasive. I mean, if it tells you anything, we have a whole practice based on it. And that's, not one or two cases. We have a lot of cases that are constantly coming in. So it's, the mere act of it's egregious, it's unnatural, it's irrational, it's illogical that someone would do that to a child. But the other part of that is looking at, like, the people that were supposed to be preventing this, the people that let this dog off the leash, what were they doing? And why are we giving people so many breaks? Why are we giving them the benefit of the doubt? Why are we saying, oh, well, I don't want to point the finger. I don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation. Like, that make me feel a little weird to say, hey, we have a concern about how you approach this situation or how you're interacting with this student or interacting with this child. Like, because of that, like, that's so egregious. Not just say, like, I'm okay being a little uncomfortable for a bit, to make sure that child will never be uncomfortable. So that's equally as egregious. It's horrific. And that's what's leading to this kind of stuff, that mentality.
What message do you have for possible, let's say a victim is watching this and they're afraid to come forward, what message do you have for them?
That so often there's this very common conception in the survivor community that you should feel shamed or fearful or afraid or that embarrassed, that people are going to judge you. I think, and doing this kind of work, helping somebody feel, you find that people you don't have those experiences. You find a community of support, and that we are able to do things to take those concerns into account to where you're not going to be publicly identified because of something that we're doing, that you can have a confidential, private setting to discuss it, discuss your options, discuss whether you want to come forward more, whether you want to participate, but at least be heard out in a setting where we couldn't tell anyone even if we wanted to, if you tell us not to. So I think that those people that are questioning, well, do I want to come, like, just pick up the phone and try. And so worst case scenario is you decide you don't want to be a part of this and you don't want to go forward. But I think you'll find a very secure, safe environment where you can feel supported and you can feel like those fears that you have will not come to fruition.
So have the lawsuits been filed? When do you plan to file them? And against what, just two school districts now, or?
As of right now, we're looking at filing against Riverview Gardens as well as Ferguson Florissant. We anticipate that the initial filings will happen anytime over the next 30 to 60 days. One of the other things that we'll need to file is charges of discrimination with the Missouri Commission on Human Rights. And so we're working on getting those on file. Usually when they're with the commission, they're not public filings because those are handled within that commission. But those eventually typically lead to a right to sue notice that allows us to then file those claims in court. However, it's about at least a 6-month process until we get those right to sue notices. So, but that's not going to hold us up from being able to pursue other types of claims, such as federal law claims as well.
Earlier, you mentioned school districts that they need to do better to vet their employees. Are these two school districts, are they potentially at fault for something else? Like, were they aware of his behavior and just turned a blind eye?
Yeah, so we're investigating what they knew. I mean, certainly with the numerosity, the idea that somebody could pull this off and abuse this many children from one district without a single red flag going up, without someone not seeing something, just kind of defies logic. But the information we have suggests that people were raising concerns that there were red flags present, and either they were being ignored or swept under the rug, or not proper reactions were happening to those red flags. So it's not just the hiring and the vetting processes, but also we believe that there's information suggesting that they weren't appropriately responding to concerning information.
How hard did you have to look for that stuff from Charlotte? So, like, in other words, how hard would local school districts had to have, what kind of diligence would they have to have done to?
Yeah, so we're working on figuring out exactly what was available to the districts at those, from the North Carolina districts, to the extent that that information pans out as viable routes. So right now it's just information that we're looking into and attempting to vet and confirm, but that's going to be a question for these districts. Commonly, all too often, it doesn't seem that there's a lot of information sharing between these districts other than, yeah, the person was employed there and here's their, yeah, they're employed here for this time to this time, and here was their position, and maybe a few other things. But it's unclear how often entire employment files are shared, how often disciplinary-esque type things are shared, or things where there are concerns raised about an educator's interactions with children, certainly inappropriate ones. But it's our position that that specific type of information, concerns about inappropriate contact with children or conduct with children, should be shared, period. So, and that's districts that are able to withhold that information and not pass it on to other districts essentially kneecaps that future district's ability to protect children. So, and not really getting down in the weeds or trying to, as that future district, calling the previous district and saying, hey, we need to know X, Y, and Z, at least trying to find those answers. That's also a concern. So why are you not asking those questions if you're not? So, and what did you do to try to drill down to make sure this person was safe to be around children, to make sure that they didn't have anything in their background?
Is that a flaw in the system? Not only districts don't seem to share information, but even, on a state-to-state level, there's no system that shows, oh, this person left in good standing, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly information like, yeah, this person left in good standing, or yeah, they might be eligible for rehire. To the extent that there are not protocols in place allowing districts to share a vast amount of information, and in my opinion, they should be allowed to share any and all information whatsoever about an educator that is seeking employment at another place with children. So if that's not the standard, if that's not allowed, then yeah, that is a statewide failure and a systemic failure. And I don't, whether it's federal law, state law, you name it, but I don't know why we would go out of our way to protect people that are potentially abusing children. It's real simple. If you don't have anything to hide, what's the big deal?
Question for the both of you to answer. Could you explain a little bit about the difference in the civil court system versus the criminal court system for victims in these situations?
Want to start? I can
Sure.
pick up after.
Yeah, so in the criminal justice system, that is about, exactly what it sounds, crime and punishment. So where the state of Missouri is the one leading the charge, or, federal prosecutors if there's federal crimes being charged, but they're trying to prove that this person committed a crime beyond a reasonable doubt for purposes of criminal convictions, sex offender registry, prison time, fines, things like that. So, and those prosecutors, while they do have kind of an unspoken duty to advocate for victims, really they're advocating for the community, and victims are part of that community. But the prosecutor's duty is to fight on behalf of their jurisdiction. In the civil justice system, we represent the victims, and that is pursuing justice on that front for things like financial compensation, pushing for changes potentially to policies and structure of how these processes are done, how hiring processes are done, what types of things should be looked into, what type of screening takes place. So pushing for change both on compensating victims for what they've been through, but also trying to get the right things put in place to make sure this doesn't happen again.
And I also think similarly along those lines, it was asked what you would say to someone who maybe is afraid to come forward. And I reiterate all the things that Grant said. And in addition, it's so sensitive. It's such a sensitive topic that I also would just encourage anyone in that position to talk to anyone they trust. Just one phone call to anyone you trust. Your first phone call doesn't have to be to an attorney. So just talking to anyone about that, I think, is important. And also, we're incredibly proud of not only our clients, but anyone who does take that initial step, because it is so daunting. And additionally, in the civil court system, as Grant was explaining, that's another hope that we hope that comes out of this too, is that there will be changes that are made. So it's not something where we're handling these cases in a vacuum, but when we're handling these cases and talking about them in rooms where people are listening, maybe it's not just these school districts, but other school districts are listening, thinking we need to make sure that we're looking at all these same policies and procedures as well. And that's something that we're very proud to be on the civil side of it too. Both are equally important, the criminal and the civil side, but that's one thing that we also hope comes out of this, is that there are changes not only made for these children, but other children, and that will, make it safer for everyone else.
Is there anything that either of you could say about what specifically the victims are accusing Gerald of?
I think, at this time, it's there's sexual abuse that was physical in nature as well as non-physical in nature, and to not jeopardize any component of the criminal investigation or that criminal process, we're not going to say too much now about that. That'll certainly be detailed in any kind of filings that we have, to the extent it's necessary to put all those details in there, or to pick which, finite details we put in there. They said any filings we would be seeking to keep our clients' names protected from any kind of public disclosure. So that, I think right now we can limit it to that it's not just physical in nature, that there was plenty of non-physical sexual abuse as well, that Mr. Gerald was engaging in with children.
Like what we saw in the charges, communicating with them through social media, texting them, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and there was, that's, I'd say, like the 30,000 foot view. Really what the contents of communications were, whether they were verbal or over electronic. What he was alleged to have requesting that these children engage in or do with him, that was, when I say non-physical sexual abuse, that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. It's not just, sending a message over Snapchat, hey, what's up? It's talking about sexual acts and potentially engaging in sexual acts.
Besides his position of power, have you gathered information about whether or not he was paying money to students to do things?
We're certainly looking into a exchange, if you will, where certain benefits or privileges were being provided to children in exchange for engaging in sexual acts. It's very classic grooming behavior and classic child sexual predator behavior to engage like gift giving or kind of like a quid pro quo. So yes, we are looking into those allegations.
Is there any evidence that was he using personal devices to do this, or was he using school-issued equipment, computers, phones, things like that?
We're still looking into exactly the broad scope of devices that he was using.
All right, everybody good?
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. That is, or was rather, the press conference from earlier today. Those were the attorneys in St. Louis representing six victims from multiple school districts who they say were sexually abused. They are accusing former middle school principal Cedric Gerald. Now, Gerald has ties to CMS. He's a former teacher at CMS. Again, that was a press conference from St. Louis, those attorneys representing those six victims as that investigation continues.